Hello, hello. How you doing this week, Haley?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I have been working through some of my habits this week,
Mm.
learning to say no to things
Ooh.
that in the past I would have said yes to because honestly, I get afraid that I won't. What I'm talking about is like professional opportunity stuff. And
Yeah.
I always worry, oh, if I say no to this, then what if it won't happen again or it was going to lead to something else or whatever. I should just take whatever it is I can get. And I'm learning to break that scarcity mindset habit that I have really built over time. And I want to say we only have so much energy. We only have so many yeses we can give. And here's my little generational wisdom today. It is hard fought wisdom to learn to say no because
Mm.
something it's just, you only have so much energy. I only have so many yeses.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I'm thinking about this week.
Yeah. It's so easy to just keep saying yes, especially when you don't want to let people down or you're
Yes.
afraid something better won't come along. But then suddenly you realize you've just said yes to everything
Yeah.
and there's no time to rest and you're just stretched way too thin. I think learning to say no, it feels uncomfortable, but honestly, it's one of the kindest things you can do for yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if do you realize even what I'm talking about? We got an email, was it
I'm
yesterday or
trying to
something?
think what
We got an email,
what
it was an invitation to speak somewhere. And
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yep.
I man, I'm gonna tell you, Haley, it was hard for me to say no to that. And then if you saw
Yeah.
the email that our
I
team sent back the
know.
next night,
I
it
know.
actually worked out where my no was
Yes.
important.
I know. That's so true. Yeah.
And the
Yep.
terms totally changed and it made it like something
Right.
that felt sustainable for me. So anyway, I just want to say to people, maybe this is your sign. If you're debating on something right now, let this be your sign. It's okay to say no. It's okay to
Yeah.
let an opportunity pass because you only have so much energy. Haley, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking with Mary Marantz from Generation
Mm.
X in our theme where we are seeking generational wisdom.
So I am loving this theme and I'm so excited for people to meet Mary because she's fantastic. I just adore her. But first, let's jump into the group chat. Remember, if you want to send your submission to the group chat, send it to Haley at whatifimwrongpod@gmail.com. And you can send it to her by a voice memo or a written submission. These submissions are where we look at any real life relational dynamics you may need the help of the group chat to process. So, are you ready? Let's get to it. Let's enter the group chat.
My best friend is getting married and chose her sister and two other friends as bridesmaids, but not me.
Mm.
We've been close ever since college, talk almost every day, and she even stayed with me for a few months last year during a breakup. I didn't expect to be the maid of honor or anything, but I honestly thought I'd at least be a part of the bridal party.
Mm.
When I gently brought it up, she said she just wanted to keep it simple and that I'd still have a special role. But it still stung. Now I'm wondering if I'm being selfish for feeling hurt. I want to be happy for her, but part of me wants to pull back a little. Am I in the wrong for being upset about not being a bridesmaid, or should I just accept it and move on?
Mm. That's an interesting one because it's not like it was just family. She chose two
Right,
friends.
right.
Okay, first, I just want to say your feelings are totally valid. And I really mean that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, is it ever wrong to feel? No, it's
yeah,
not
right.
wrong to feel hurt. You thought, this is my best friend. We're really close. And so
Yeah,
her decision caught you off guard. I think whatever feelings you have from that, that's just being human.
yeah, exactly. But here's the thing, weddings bring out all kinds of emotions
Yeah.
and weird dynamics. I think sometimes decisions are made based on like family pressures or logistics or personal boundaries that aren't even about you.
Right. And it doesn't mean your friendship isn't real, but it is a good time to check in with yourself. Am I upset because, where is this coming from? Am I upset because I'm
Mm,
feeling excluded? Or have I somehow tied my value of this relationship into whatever title they're going to give me that I think like a bridal party now validates? What am I really feeling? I think it's important to ask yourself that question.
totally, yeah. And if you pull back out of that hurt and ask yourself, will that protect you or is it just going to punish the friendship?
Mm.
You can be disappointed and still show up.
Yeah, I would say that too. Exactly. You're not in the wrong for how you feel, but how you respond,
Yeah.
that's where sometimes we
Yeah.
can be wrong. We can't make somebody else's
Mhm.
wedding about us. And
Right.
that's just the
Yes.
reality. She's made her decision. And I think all you can do is choose growth. So
Yeah.
that's our thoughts today. Thanks for entering the group chat with us. Okay, before we get to submissions, let's define the term. Remember, for this segment, I am going to tell you a word and its actual definition. And I want you to ask yourself how knowing the actual definition may change how you see your relationship with that word. Today's term is wisdom. According to the Oxford Dictionary, wisdom is defined as the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. I want you to catch this part too. The ability to apply what you know in a thoughtful way. So here's what
Hmm.
stood out to me. Wisdom isn't just about knowing, it's about living it out, it's about application of what we know. It's not the same as intelligence. You can be brilliant and foolish, but wisdom requires time. It grows in the tension between what you've been through and what you choose to do next. So, what if we've been wrong in thinking wisdom only lives in books or credentials? What if wisdom also lives in the stories of those who have been here longer than us? Maybe we don't need newer answers. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to listen to some older voices.
I love this. And I think we've talked about this in another episode. Like, the more you learn, the more you
Yeah.
realize how much you don't know. And I really do try and seek older voices in my life because I don't know everything. And I
Yeah.
will happily admit that. I love having older voices who have just had more life experience be able to speak into me. I just think it is so, so beneficial.
Yeah. Number one thing, we're going to bring Mary on. I can't wait for you guys to meet her. She's going to be talking and representing Gen X today. She is just so smart and sharp
Mm,
and wise and lived and
yeah.
also intelligent and brilliant. But
Yeah.
the best piece of advice I would give if I was talking to, I don't know, if you're 25, just making this up, or let's do 30. If you're 30 years old, here's the best piece of advice I would give you. Talk to people who have been where you are
Mm,
and ask them what they've seen. The best thing I ever did in my life was seek out guidance and mentorship from people who have been where I was and had
yeah.
told me what they've seen. And even especially like spiritually,
Mhm.
that really started to change my life. And it's just so silly because it's like, duh, other people have walked a spiritual life with God, or
Yeah.
other people have felt hurt by God, or other people have felt forgotten by God. But something changed when I started to hear people's stories.
Yeah. That's so true.
Right?
Yeah,
And then I started to
for sure.
realize, oh my goodness, they thought God forgot them, and come to find out 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line, like God was with them the entire time. What if I apply what they experienced to my situation right now? All right, let's bring on the wonderful Mary Marantz. I am super excited for submissions today, Haley, because we have a guest for our submissions portion here, Gen X Wisdom. I thought, who better than Mary Marantz? Mary is the author of Underestimated: The Surprisingly Simple Shift to Quit Playing Small, Name the Fear, and Move Forward Anyway. Okay, Mary, I am a new fan to you. I absolutely love you. Been going through some of your podcast episodes. What would you say? And this book is brilliant, by the way.
Thank you.
What would you say in Underestimated is something that you think really would speak to the heart of like a Gen X? Actually, wait, I didn't prep you for this. Can I like machine gun some other things too?
Yeah.
Let's do this. What do you think in there would really play to the heart of a Gen X person a millennial person and a Gen Z.
Oh boy.
Dun, dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun. Yeah. Well, tell us about what's in this book. I'm super excited for our people to get to know it.
Yeah, okay, so right off the bat, I mean, I think it's important for people to know that I am technically Gen X. I was born in 1980, but I'm one of those, like, right on the cusp people. We're
Okay.
called Xennials, where we take
Yeah.
on some of the characteristics of Gen
Okay.
X and millennial, and I very much resonate with that. But I think for our Gen X people, you are gonna love this book because it is, well, first and foremost, it's just peppered with 80s and 90s references all
Yes.
throughout. The movie quotes are epic, the, Journey lyrics, whatever. There's a lot of 80s in there. And in particular, I'm thinking of one part in chapter 10 when I kick that off. That's one of my favorite chapters. It's called Perfectionism is Hiding with Better PR. So every single
Mm,
chapter is a different face of fear that we tackle toe to toe, one by one, the systematic takedown of fear we've all been waiting for.
yeah.
And it starts off by saying, a strong Enneagram 4, an Enneagram 4 with a strong wing 3, a proud Appalachian, and a child, hashtag child of the 80s, walk into a room together. No, this is not some hilarious joke I'm telling. I am all three of these people. All three of these people are
Mm,
me. And it
Mm.
talks about how growing up in Appalachia in the 80s, where we were all basically just feral cats left to our own devices,
mm,
up with the sunrise, just be back when the streetlights come on, come home when you need to be fed. We become kind of very hyper vigilant and hyper independent to the
Mm.
point, Heather, where I say things like, I don't need you feeling sorry for me. I don't need you averting your eyes from me in some sort of sympathy shame on my behalf. While we're at it, unless specifically asked, I don't need your good ideas, best practices, or good advice either. They burn in my ears, run down my throat, and taste like condescension. I don't need
mm.
you worrying about me. Then I'll just have to worry about you worrying about me. And it talks about this bespoke, stoic armor that I think those of us in Gen X can really wear, where we learned
Mm,
very early, these latchkey kids, how to take care of ourselves and how to not need anybody
mm,
and not be a bother to anybody. So that's what I would say for Gen X, is there's a strong running theme in there of how do we become people who are willing to ask for help. The millennials in the group, I think that's going to resonate more with this sort of, we learned how to earn our worth by how we performed, and
mm.
almost like this overcorrection of that, of like we felt like we had to get gold stars for things that really didn't need gold stars, because
Right.
if we weren't getting gold stars, what were we even doing?
Mm.
Right.
And so I think that's going to really speak to that performer's heart, that like I have to earn my seat at the table. I have to be the most put together one in the room, not because I think of myself that way, but because it's the bare minimum standard I think
Mm.
I have to hit,
Right.
just to belong in those rooms. And then for Gen Z, I think we're really going to start to see them resonate with the parts where we're not doing it to prove somebody else wrong, where we're not doing it, to earn someone else's approval or for them to co-sign the plan for our lives. I think Gen Z is really breaking barriers in terms of not following the mold or feeling like they have to do it just because
Mm.
that's how previous generations did it. So
Yeah.
they're really going to resonate with this. We're showing up and doing the work we were called to do because it serves the world, not because it makes somebody else be okay with us.
Yeah. What do you think is the danger of underestimating your
Mhm.
potential or your purpose?
Well, I mean, I think the really scary part, I think about this Oliver Wendell Holmes quote a lot, which is not something you usually say in casual conversation. I don't usually drop Oliver Wendell Holmes.
Yeah.
But he had this quote, Heather, that was,
She graduated from, was it Harvard or Yale?
it was Yale.
So
Yeah.
Yale. So
Yeah.
I
Wow.
actually don't believe that you don't drop these quotes in normal conversation. There's a Yale grad on the call with us, y'all.
Maybe a little. Don't let quotes trick you. Yale was number one. Harvard was number three,
There we
actually.
go. There we go.
But yeah, so the Oliver Wendell Holmes quote says, most people will go to their graves with the music still inside them unplayed. And
Wow.
that's the danger, right? That's the danger, is when you think about your friends, your family, people you know in your neighborhood, at your church, whatever it is, 99.9% totally made up statistic on the spot, but most people are never going to do the things they were put here to do.
Wow.
Hmm.
I think that should rattle our rib cages,
Yes.
that should scare us.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Okay. Haley, I know you got some submissions on this
Yeah.
one. Okay. Remember, Mary is on the cusp, friends, of Gen X and millennials. So if she doesn't have all the answers, that's okay. We will stumble through this together. Haley, what do we got first?
Hey, I'm 22, and I've always had this image of Gen X as kind of detached. Like you're the generation that just doesn't want to be bothered. You
Mhm.
didn't protest like boomers, you didn't disrupt like millennials, and you're not hyper online like us. But lately, I've been wondering, Was that actually a conscious choice? Like, were you
Mm.
trying to stay out of the spotlight, or were you just never given a voice in the first place? I
Mm.
guess
Mm,
what I'm asking is, what were you fighting for if it wasn't loud or obvious? Were you
right.
were you resisting in a quieter way we just didn't see? I feel like there's a whole story behind your generation that never got told. What do you wish someone would have asked Gen X before now?
Wow, what a
Mm.
smart, thoughtful question. I love
We
that
get
so much.
super, yes, super thoughtful
That's
submissions.
so good. Okay, so let's just kind of break down Gen X a little bit. So I
Yeah,
mentioned this a
please.
little bit earlier. We were the original latchkey kids.
Right.
And
Mm,
so what that means is we were the first generation where the economy was changing as such that
Yes.
both parents had to go work, right?
Mhm.
We were no longer I mean, there are of course exceptions to every rule, but we were no longer the case where one parent could go work and one could stay home with the kids and that could be affordable. And so
Yeah.
my mom got a job working at the Ames department store, came into our small town when I turned 8, I believe it was. And up until that point, she'd been cleaning houses just to help,
hmm,
make ends meet. But by 8, she was working a day job. And so, I am coming home from school, riding the bus home, and I'm home alone from like
hmm,
2:30 in the afternoon until 6:30 or so in the evening.
Mm.
And in the summer, I'm home alone the whole time.
Wow.
And we would order like the frozen pizzas in bulk from the Swanson truck that would come through the neighborhood once a
Yeah.
month.
yeah.
And I would subsist on those and like those crumbly ice cream sandwich things. And so we were very much taking care of ourselves. We
Hmm,
were I truly mean it in that feral cat. I mean, when I think about the childhood I had where I'm 20 miles from home on a bike, where there's
Wow.
rattlesnakes and we're stepping in yellow jacket,
And no cell phones to say,
no
"This is where I am and this is what's
yeah.
happening." Yeah.
So we very quickly learned, I think Gen X in a lot of ways is like the middle child where we sort of kind of got
Mm,
overlooked, don't be a bother to anybody and we'll pretty much leave you alone. And so I believe that for Gen X this self-preservationist, self-survival switch got flipped in us
Mm.
where, in Dirt, my first book, and in my second book, Slow Growth Equals Strong Roots, I have this analogy of this girl in the red cape running through the deep dark woods, the big bad wolf ripping at her heels. She knows that if she stops running, it just might kill her until we finally realize, breathless and at last exhausted, looking over our shoulder, I am the girl in the red cape, but I am also the wolf. And that
Mm.
voice in my head
mm,
telling me to run and not stop running, that voice is my own. And I bring that up because for those of us who had a self preservation, a switch like that, a survival mode switch like that, flip, it's very hard to turn it back off. And we can go through life feeling like I'm so consumed with just surviving myself that
Mm.
it's hard for me to show up beyond that. And I think like when that question, particularly about like, what are you protesting? What do you stand for? I think the thing you really got to give Gen X a lot of credit for is you want to talk about generation changers. You want to talk about family tree shakers and the Sharpie mark through the family tree, like my friend Hannah Brencher calls it, of a before and an after. Like we're quietly changing generations over
mm,
here because we said it ends with us.
Mm.
And so you might not see the impact or ripple effects for that for a few generations, but just because you don't see it and just because we don't post it online
Right.
doesn't mean we're not doing it. And that's the
mm,
last thing I want to say about that is our generation grew up processing world traumatic events by sitting in front of a TV. Right? Your generation processes it by getting on social media and saying the first thing that you think
Mhm.
about it.
Mhm.
Right? That, like, if you
mm-hmm.
don't react to it right away, then you don't care. But that's just
Yeah.
not, we're
Yeah.
wired differently
Yeah.
Yes.
where we go away and we gather our people around and we hold them close and we watch it unfold and we talk to people in person about what we're feeling.
This is like a whole other conversation on like social media and advocacy, but I really struggle
Mm,
with this idea that if I'm not posting,
right?
I'm not interested or I don't
Yeah.
understand or I just because anyway, this is a whole other
Yeah,
conversation, but I actually think we disservice real advocacy by thinking it's what happens online
that's right.
rather than what I'm actually showing up and doing in my day-to-day life
Yeah,
and work.
right.
So, yeah, I we could do a whole episode on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Cosine. Cosine. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, what's another one, Haley?
All right. I've grown up with therapy, TikTok, and constant self reflection. So here's my question: how did Gen X deal with mental health when no one was
Mm.
talking about it? Did you feel completely alone, or were you just used to bottling it up?
Mm,
Haley,
yeah.
save that one. I wanna do that with boomers too.
Okay.
That's a really good one. Yeah.
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 The first answer that comes to my head is, like, we dealt with it with, like, Dr. Pepper and Mountain Dew and, like, you know,
Self-soothing.
chemical preservation.
Yeah.
We drank water from the water hose and
Yeah.
ate off of plastics. No, I mean, that answer right there is very classic Gen X
Yeah.
sarcastic, sardonic wit, right? Like, that's what we had to do to survive. We weren't talking about our feelings. We weren't
Mm,
we weren't being emotionally developed, by our parents, you know? And so I do think that there is this and this is a part of that Xennial side, the Gen X side I really resonate with is this stiff upper lip, pull it, gosh, I've had to really unpack bootstraps because I do come from a
Yes.
very strong pull yourself up by your bootstraps, get punched in the teeth and get up and keep going. I mean, my dad went to work in the woods when he was 12 years old. So
Mm,
like I was not complaining about much.
right.
That was not going to be yeah, really, indulged much if I had complaints.
mhm.
And so, I'm cleaning houses at 4 years old with my mom and grandma. I'm
Wow.
the one making the fire in the old wood stove that was not connected at the roof. So it's like shooting orange and blue blazes across the ceiling, just Pink Panther fluffs of insulation getting singed. So I mean, there was just not it was not an easy childhood. It was again that survival mode of like we're all doing what we need to do to put food on the
Mm,
table. Buck up, And so
Yeah.
I would say my adulthood and writing a book like Dirt and then, just actually this visual of sitting down crisscross applesauce on the floor with the littlest version of me and saying, "I'm sorry all this happened to you."
Mm,
At, my book Dirt came out when I was 40. So it took a
mm.
minute, it took a
Yeah.
minute to get there, but it was just a different time. And I just think of like that flannel Winona Ryder, Empire. She was not in Empire Records, but like that kind of. I think that was more Liv Tyler. Maybe that was more the '90s. But like we were just very much that like use Breakfast Club, like
yeah.
sarcasm and flannel. Just a lot of flannel,
Yeah.
to not have to deal with any of what is actually like wounding us as children.
Mm.
Mm.
How do you go from cleaning houses at 4 years old to Yale? Talk to me really about that transition.
Yeah, when I trace the dominoes backwards, Heather, from like, like if the last domino to fall was getting that acceptance letter all the way back into my childhood, what happened for me that was different? So I mentioned my dad went to work in the woods when he was 12, and my parents got married when my mom was 17, and they wanted their
Mm.
independence. So they bought this single wide trailer and then had it hauled into the backyard of my grandparents' yard.
Hmm.
So very independent, and I'm growing up in the same yard my dad grew up in. I'm going to the same Sunday school he went to. I'm about to start kindergarten at the same elementary school, this tiny elementary school where kindergarten and first shared a room, third and fourth shared a room, fifth and sixth shared a room, and second had a room to themselves inexplicably. And he saw my life unfolding very, very similarly, same trajectory as his did. Not that I would necessarily work in the woods, but that I would have very limited options if something didn't
Mm,
change. And so at the time in the 80s, they had these workbooks on the shelf at the register at the checkout for the grocery store. And the idea, they had a math track and a reading track. The idea is you would get them for whatever grade your kid was about to start. And so my dad started me in kindergarten reading and math. And when I finished that workbook, we bumped up to first grade. And when we finished that one, I bumped up to second grade. And so it kept going so that when I started kindergarten, I was at a sixth grade reading level
wow.
Wow.
and a fifth grade math. And so when
Wow.
you
Mm.
start out that far ahead, you
Yep.
get called labels like smart and gifted and
Yeah.
ahead of the
Mhm.
curve. And we play up to the labels that are put on us. I said in Dirt,
Mm.
these labels become either a lifeline or a lifelong curse. And they became this definition of who I was from a very young age that I think just kept the dominoes falling.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you have another one, Haley?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. We have time.
Okay. We get criticized for being online too much and too sensitive. But what do you think our generation gets wrong about yours?
So this must be a Gen Z person talking, I take
Yes,
it.
I believe it's a Gen Z.
Okay.
Yeah. I think what the youngest generation can get wrong is, there's this quote. I want to say it's from Teddy Roosevelt. Again, I don't usually quote Teddy Roosevelt, but here we are. That it's this running joke, and I'm not. Please let me preface this, but I'm not co-signing this or endorsing this
Okay.
quote. But it's basically, if you are a Republican before the age of 30, you don't have a heart. And if you are not a Republican after the age of 30, then you don't have a brain.
Mm.
Not my words, not my quote,
Yeah,
Yeah.
not
yeah.
advocating for that, but that's the
Right.
idea. And I think that what the younger generation is probably getting wrong about us, especially those of us in our 40s, mid 40s, is that we're just getting colder. I think for
Mm.
the Gen X in particular, like I was saying earlier, it's actually the opposite. If you're doing the work at all, I think we're
Mm.
actually for the first time in our lives becoming, I kind of call it underestimated. It's like taking the lid off Pandora's box, where suddenly all of this stuff comes flying out that we've been shoving down for 40 years. And so I think for a lot of us, we are actually just now getting around to doing some of that work. And that if you talk to a Gen X person, you would be surprised to find out both how funny we are. We're very
Mm.
funny, very witty,
Mhm,
lots of,
mhm.
pop culture references, but just how deep those waters run.
Mm.
Once we finally start to get, beyond the sarcasm, there's actually a lot of depth there and a lot
Yeah.
of hard-won wisdom. And I do think you may be online too little much,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like I know how I feel when I'm on my phone too much. I have a lot of anxiety
Yeah.
and I don't sleep well. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe there is something to be learned from us.
I hear the hard fought wisdom
Mm,
just in the way you've navigated these questions that I think is really interesting and important. And this
yeah,
is even just doing this, I'm so excited about this theme in this series because there
me
is
too.
so much we can learn from one
Hmm.
another's experiences. And especially what I've taken too from you is we're on a show like What If I'm Wrong? It
Right.
sounds like Gen X maybe is one of the first generations to really ask that question,
Yes.
right? And then make shifts and adjustments based on that information. And it might be something, I don't know, Haley, do you feel like Gen Z really asks themselves, or I wonder, like when you're young, do you think you're wrong? Or do you just think you're wrong about everything? I don't know. You tell me, Haley.
I feel like you think you're right about everything. I
That's what
I
I
think
think.
yeah, in my experience, it's like the older I get, the more I'm like, oh, I'm really wrong about these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm hearing from Mary, like just this deeper level of processing that happens
Yeah.
as we get
Yeah.
older and have wisdom that I think is
Yeah.
so needed and
Yeah.
so necessary.
I would add to that also, like,
Yeah.
really processing, like, what if I'm wrong, but also, like, what if my parents were wrong about that? What if my grandparents were wrong
Wow.
about that, And I talk in dirt about, like, this moment in my life when I go to England after my undergrad. My dad did not want me to go at all. I told him I was going a week after 9/11. He was not at all
Mm.
thrilled. And he wanted me to stay in the safety of West Virginia. And I say that, like as I was leaving, we were like basically like two ships drifting apart with two very different worldviews and ocean between us now.
Hmm.
And I think that you can really have to wrestle with like, what do I take from my childhood? What do I take from my parents? And honor it and say, like, those were my roots and they built me. And also, how do you leave a place without saying there was something always wrong with it? How do you reach for more without saying this was always less than? And like maybe their view of the world was limited by he stayed on top of Fenwick Mountain his whole life.
Right.
So that's part of it too.
Yeah. We are all a product of like our experiences,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
especially today, I think as we're in such a intergenerational culture, such a global culture, even you can see it with fashion. You can't
Yeah.
really tell a difference anymore between what young kids are wearing and what
Right.
older. It's like all the fashion standards have kind of blended in together where when I was a kid there was a vast difference between, right?
Right.
Like there's just so much connection
That's
between all of
interesting.
our different generations that it does seem like, I don't know, it just seems like there's so much more exposure than
Yeah.
my parents would have had or your parents would have had
Right.
to
Yeah. That's
ideas.
interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
right
oh
though.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Mary, we love you.
Oh,
We love you here
same.
on What If I'm Wrong. Thank you so much for joining us. Mary Marantz is the author of Dirt. Pause the episode right now. You can add to cart Dirt, Mary Marantz. You can also add Underestimated, the surprisingly simple shift to quit playing small, name the fear, and move forward anyway. And actually, after listening to Mary, there is no better person to write this book, right,
Right.
than you.
Right.
And so take her wisdom and counsel and advice. Mary, we thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. If they go to namethefear.com, we have the whole first chapter up there for free. And you can also take the achiever quiz to figure out what your achiever type is.
Namethefear.com. First chapter for free. I don't know about you. I love the word free. Check it out. I want to close every episode with a segment I call Day in the Bible. And this is where I share something I have learned in Bible study with you that will beg the question, what if I'm wrong about how I have been reading or thinking or explaining this Bible passage? Today, I want to look at Ephesians 6. We're going to look at verses 2 to 3, which is a command that comes with a promise. So that my dad, I just remember growing up, my dad used to say all the time, that honoring that comes with a blessing. Honoring your parents comes with a blessing. So here it is. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on earth. So when I heard those things, for me growing up, honor your father and mother so that it may go well with you and you may enjoy long life. That was never hard for me because I had really present, wonderful, loving parents. And so honoring your parents leading to long life, I think for a lot of people, that just sounds like wisdom. But I do want to talk about this for a second because, I know so many people that have really complicated relationships with their parents. And so that idea of honoring parents who have abandoned you or honoring parents who have hurt you or were incapable of being a parent to you, that's hard. Oh, so that my days can be long, that can bring up conflict in their spirit. So I just want to look at this with you another way. Okay. So in scripture, we are told to honor your father and mother. But here's the thing: honor doesn't always mean agreement, it doesn't even mean approval. Honor is about how we treat someone, not how we feel about them. What if we've been wrong in thinking honor is something people have to earn based on their behavior? What if honor is something we choose to give because it says more about who you are than who they are? Maybe in a world that runs on criticism, honor is actually a radical act. It's a quiet way of saying, I value your humanity and I respect your freedom to live your life on your own moral code. And I will esteem your dignity as a person, even if you choose to not do the same for me. What if choosing to honor our parents, even when we don't agree with all the choices that they have made, what if we can choose to still honor their dignity or their humanity, right? Or who they are, who God is calling them to be, even if they're falling short of that? What if that choice is what leads us to a long life? That's it for today's episode. Join us next week as we continue in our theme of generational wisdom.
Next week, we are sitting down with Gary Miller from the Boomer generation. You can send me your submissions if you want us to discuss whatever experience you're questioning on the podcast. Email me at whatifimwrongpod@gmail.com.
I'm Heather Thompson Day, and I'll see you next week.